All right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm actually calling these PMI shorts. If I can get everybody else to start calling them that, then it'll be a thing. So this is PMI shorts number 2. And my name is David Womack. I'm the president and CEO of Practice Management Institute. And today I'm joined by Kim Tolliver and Jan Hailey. Kim and Jan are both trainers with PMI, both teach the CMOM curriculum. Today we're going to dive into not really the CMOM class as much as Kim and Jan's journey and how it all began with CMOM. Welcome, Kim. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you so much for having us, David.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is going to be a lot of fun. At least the planning for it was. So we'll see how well we planned. So initially, for those who aren't aware, I want to kind of share the CMOM story, how CMOM came about. This year, 2024, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of CMOM. So we're trying, yeah, exactly. We're trying just to certainly give CMOM its props, to tell the CMOM story, and to interact with a lot of people that have become CMOM graduates. And lo and behold, here's 2 of our own. So in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, PMI had our curriculum, how to be the best receptionist, how to be the best collector, an office management basic class, an ICD-9 class in the day, and a variety of other things. And a certain segment of our audience really reached out and they started to ask, what's next? Us being in the proverbial big ivory tower, sat and looked at each other and thought, oh my God, we really don't have anything. So we went to the drawing board and we created the CMOM curriculum. We created the CMOM curriculum to be kind of an overarching, almost like what's the very last class you take as a college senior? I forget, Gateway, not Gateway.
Is it Capstone?
Capstone. That's exactly it. Kind of ties all the pieces together. And that's what CMOM was for. We joked internally that CMOM was going to be for the person that missed the meeting and showed up at work one day and they said, guess who's the office manager? That's who this class was designed for. Anyway, Jan and Kim, like I said, we had some fun in just kind of putting this together. Certainly a lot of memories. Without dating anyone here, you all received your CMOMs many moons ago.
Understatement.
So, Jan, I'm going to start with you. Tell me your CMOM story. Tell me where it started for you.
Okay, well, I certainly don't mind dating myself. So I was actually certified back in 2001. And it seems like yesterday, some days, and other days, I can't remember life without certification. But the reason I became a certified medical office manager was the fact that I was coming from an inpatient environment. I had had several years of healthcare experience, but it was all inpatient. It was scheduling, surgery scheduling, admitting, the emergency department. And then I moved over to the ambulatory setting and realized this is a whole different ball game than what I have ever done. And so what I started doing was I started reaching out to other office managers, some that had been managers for years, and realized they don't have any more knowledge than I do. And a friend of mine happened to call me and say, hey, I see that Memorial Hospital is sponsoring the Certified Medical Office Manager course. What do you think about it? And I said, I'm signing up for it, really without even knowing exactly what the curriculum was. And I took the course. She didn't, by the way. And I've never looked back. But the thing that really drove home was I felt like I gained the confidence to be able to go back to the office and really have the knowledge of what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing, and when to reach out, who to reach out to. And but more so than that is it really gave me my passion. I found my niche in healthcare.
That's
Without
awesome.
it, I may still be working inpatient, but instead I really found my niche in the ambulatory world and have loved it ever since.
That's fantastic. Kim, you've got a different journey.
Yeah, it's a little different, but it also seems a little familiar, I think, not only to Jan, but probably to a lot of our listeners and our members. I started my career in healthcare on the outpatient side in private practice as a medical receptionist. So those are back in the days when we had carbon copy phone pads and, a lot of manual processes. And I think like many of my colleagues, I got on the job training and continued to get promoted into new roles and additional responsibilities until I got to the point of office manager. And I started realizing that I had gaps in my skills. And in all of the positions that I'd mastered, up until that point, I thought that I knew it all. And when I got into office management, I realized, oh, you don't know it all. And at the time, um, the medical society in my state, so I'll go ahead and throw the name out there, MedChi, which is the Maryland State Medical Society, they do a lot of advocacy for physician practices. And at the time, PMI had been partnering with MedChi, and my instructor, who I just learned her name, Regina Mixon Bates, was teaching this class. So that was 21 years ago. And I am proud to say that not only were my skills gaps filled at that time, but it also gave me a desire to learn more. It's really an honor to work with folks like Jan and others to present and educate our colleagues, our peers on CMOM certification and materials. But it's been a very worthwhile experience for me. I actually still have my binder from 21 years ago. And I'm going to also tell you something else that's funny that I realized before we got on. I still have the MapQuest directions on how to get to
No
MedChi.
Google that back then.
There's a lot of people that won't know what MapQuest is. That's funny. the old version of Google Maps.
There you go.
The written version of Google Maps.
Exactly. Well, and you know what? Another funny story, Jan, when we were doing some of the planning for this, you actually remember, I remembered attending a different one, but you actually remembered attending a review session that was at the hotel where the faculty member was staying, and a bunch of the group from your class actually got together and huddled before the test the next day.
We did, and that has always stood out to me. So I didn't give my location. I'm actually located in northern Indiana, home of the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. And we had actually met at a restaurant that was the old Studebaker Mansion. That was turned into a restaurant. And that's actually where we met and then had a study group. And that has always stood out to me because I realized at that moment that it wasn't just me wanting my success, it was others, but we were all rooting for each other and helping each other. And everyone brought a little bit something different to the table, literally. And it was just a great experience all the way around. Great instructor, great students in the class.
That's fantastic. So over this 20 plus year period. We all know MapQuest being one. A lot of things have changed. How is CMOM still relevant today, maybe even more relevant today as it was 20 years ago? Kim, I'll let you go first.
Well, let me first start off with answering that question by foundation. So I credit CMOM as giving me the foundation to be able to withstand and stay up to date and interpret all of the changes that continuously happen every day, every week, every quarter, every month, every year in healthcare. So I really think that in order for you to be successful, you have to start at a really solid foundation. And the curriculum that is included in the CMOM certification, it's not just theory and philosophy. It's giving you, real life, day-to-day operations of how to prepare a medical record. What should be included in a medical record? Using formulas for financial management. Now that I have the pleasure of being a two-time author, I use a lot of those formulas that I learned from my PMI certification to this day. And so when you're thinking about the relevance, it really kind of starts with that ground zero and having that base. Because when you think about 21 years ago, there was no thought of value-based payment models or pay for performance, right?
Yes.
You had the foundation of fee for service. The fee for service model evolved, and as practice leaders, we also need to continue to evolve. And in order to do that, I think you have to have a solid foundation, and that's what CMOM gave me.
That's a really, really good. That's a great point. Jan, what about your perspective?
So I think CMOM has evolved through the years. Originally, at least when I took the course way back in 2001, I think a lot of the material was geared toward private practice. There were a lot of managers that were running single physician practice offices, or maybe 2 or 3 physicians. And as we have moved through the years, a lot of physicians are now working for healthcare systems. So managers may say, well, why do I need to know this information? We have a finance department, we have an HR department, but I think it's more important than ever to have that information. So I'll just take the finance piece, for example. You may have a finance department, but it is that manager that is still in the nitty-gritty of every day that needs to know that information. They need to know when they have a salesperson come in, how do I find if this is something I should be doing or not? How do I find the formula? How many patients need that service? And also, the manager is often the one who recognizes when things start going wrong, long before it ever hits the finance department. And I think that's true in a lot of the different modules. I think it's that way in the HR module. The manager will identify things before even the HR department does, or before the managed care department does. And they can also then have the knowledge where they can discuss a budget, they can discuss a contract, and then they can educate their physicians, which is going to make the practice more successful, whether it's privately owned or are part of a healthcare system.
Yeah. I want to add something to you mentioned relevance, and it's important that as healthcare leaders, we stay relevant.
Yes.
And in order for us, we have to stay relevant. And in order for us to stay relevant, we need to understand what's happening in the industry, and not only understand it, we need to be able to interpret it. We need to be able to educate others, and then we need to be able to implement changes in our organizations. So that is another reason why this certification is so relevant.
Well, and I had made a note just in the planning that, CMOM shouldn't be viewed as a destination. It's the very beginning of the journey. And, to Jan's point, I think unfortunately, a lot of those individual practices that are connected to systems don't realize it's a dual-edged sword. They're really their own little separate business unit. And the fancy computers back at corporate, man, they can rifle in and rifle shot into your practice anytime they want to.
Yeah.
Better make sure that your numbers look good.
Yeah.
So finally, I wanted to ask both of you kind of your perspective on not only your career, but just what you see as far as career opportunities for people that are thinking about becoming a certified medical office manager. Jan?
So I think there's two things to look at when it comes to certification. One is it's going to advance your career. It's going to really help you decide where you want to go. But then I also think, even if you're not a current office manager, but that's something that you're striving for, the certification can help you get there. It's going to give you the skills you need, but it's also going to help you stay updated with the trends, as Kim has mentioned, and it'll just provide some increased opportunities all the way around. When I think of all of the opportunities that I have had over the years, I can relate them back to sitting in that class for those 4 days and learning so much that I became so excited about it, learning about things that I had called other managers and said, how do you do this? And they didn't know. And I was like, how could you be doing this for this many years and not know these things? And I think there's a lot of aha moments during CMOM that is, how did I get this far without knowing this? So
that's funny.
A lot of aha moments.
That's great. Kim?
Yeah. And just piggybacking off of what you just said, Jan, is that there's an opportunity of vulnerability when you're together with your colleagues, in a certification process. And in the classes that I've been able to teach, I really love to see that vulnerability where folks are like, I didn't know that. And being able to be able to learn together. But in terms of like from my perspective, career path, I think it's important to be credible, and that there are industry leaders that have an alphabet soup behind their names, right? That you see all of these letters and which is, sometimes it could seem like overkill, but when you think about it, they are credible resources. They are subject matter experts. Why? Because they put the time in to invest in themselves, or their organization or employer put the time in to invest in them. So when I think about my career journey as a medical receptionist, I could have never imagined that I would be working on refreshing and participating in content development for CMOM certification and writing books and being a consultant, right? And working for myself after having a wonderful career in private practice and in hospital settings. But being credible, not only to, your clients and the industry, but to yourself. Because some of us deal with imposter syndrome. And one of the best ways to knock imposter syndrome, on its butt is to have knowledge and to be able to stand on that knowledge. So that's kind of where I see those opportunities coming in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
and Kim, just to add to that, that extended knowledge, I think that's certifications provide that, because as we all know, we have different certifications for different things, but you have, in order to keep that certification, you stay up on the current trends. So if we look back, both of us have been credentialed with CMOM for 20 years. life is much different now than it was 20 years ago, but it's having that certification. I don't want to necessarily use the word force, but I will.
Yeah.
It forces you to stay up. It forces you to be relevant in your chosen career path and so forth. So yeah, certification can certainly help you advance. It validates those skill sets.
Yeah, I want to point out one other thing that Jan highlighted. The different certifications that some of us go after. That is so critical. And I know that PMI offers, varying certifications, which is great. But when you're a practice leader, you need to know everything. You need to be the know-it-all in the practice. You need to understand coding. You need to understand compliance. You need to understand human resources. You need to understand facilities management and, plugging the toilet and IT, dealing with, troubleshooting, and having the motivation. How about we use that word? The motivation to get continuing education units every year, because you need to keep up your certifications.
Right.
It motivates you to stay knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love my takeaway is the foundation kind of all starts with that. And I think that's a really, really great point. Well, I tell you what, I certainly, I know that people will enjoy listening to you both. I've certainly enjoyed it. This has been as much fun doing as it was planning. That's not true. Planning may have been a little bit more fun. I want to thank both of you for doing this and for sharing your stories with our audience, and certainly look forward to being able to do more of these in the future. I do want to let people know that at the tail end, whichever end that is, of this, I'm going to throw a slide up. Both Jan and Kim have their own businesses and do work, in this industry and in this space. And if you'd like to get a hold of either of them, I'll put their contact information up at the end of this. Having said that, ladies, have a great day.
Thanks, David. It's been a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.